All right, welcome to this week's episode of our Shotmaker podcast. We thought this is a really good week to talk about some big sports news as it relates to player compensation, we'll say. So we're going to start with the Ohtani story. So fill us in with what's going on with that.
So if you haven't watched any news, sports or anything, Shohei Ohtani got signed for $700 million, 10 years by the Los Angeles Dodgers to play baseball because he can hit and pitch.
He's pretty good.
He's 2-1. He's good. He's the best player in baseball right now, right? His stats. But a record contract that is crushed, but average, year salary, total compensation. I mean, not even close to the other ones that were going.
Yeah.
In any sport, really. Even the football now and baseball, basketball. No one's in that range. So that's where we start.
But it's structured in a really interesting way. Right? I think that was everyone was like, wow, that's huge, right? In Philly, we have Bryce Harper, who we love to talk about. But, this is like double Bryce Harper. This is a crazy number as a fan, right? But the way it's structured is really interesting.
Yeah, they got creative. As we loop back into restaurants later, they got creative, and it looks like to be a $2 million a year salary. So $20 million over 10 years, and the rest is going to be deferred. Yeah. So $680 million are going to be paid to future payments after he's done this 10-year contract.
Which is really interesting, right? Because I think that's where it's such a cool thing to look at as a business owner, because they were really creative with conserving their cash to be spent on other players, right? So you're not going to have the argument of all of your money is going to one person, because it's really not.
Right, exactly. It allows them. They just made another trade, this week to get another pitcher. So, it's not stopping them. And they already have a really large payroll. Baseball, Dodgers are already one of the top payrolls in baseball.
Yeah.
It's not like they weren't already spending money. They, have a lot of stars. So they just add another one, a very expensive another one.
Yeah, so. But now they really won't feel the hurt for 10 years. So you could go a lot of different directions with this, but I definitely think it's something to say. How many times do we as an organization let the cost of something hold us back? Right, I just can't afford a big GM. I wish I could, but I can't. Where you think about it, here they're getting the best of both worlds. Maybe they couldn't afford $700,000 the traditional way, but they found a way to make it work on both sides.
Yeah, and I think, obviously they want to win World Series, and that's going to, generate, whatever kind of dollars, right, for what that would be. But I think someone's crunching numbers, right? Yeah. There's some accountant in the very, very back of the room, and they did some return on investment, right? They looked at how many jerseys they're going to sell. Yeah. They looked at TV contracts. They looked at concession stands. Yeah. They looked at all these things right now. And they said, probably someone's like, even if we never win a World Series, we're probably going to make that back, even though it's a crazy number.
Yes.
And I think as business owners, it's the same idea a little bit.
Because you touched on it, it's the ROI. And I think we talk about that a lot with our clients, as you guys on the consulting end, the on-site visit. It's okay, from a starting point, if you've invested in this person, I think setting your own expectation, and it's some of those intangible things. Like you said, if you have this great big name player, then you would expect more people to be talking about it. We're talking about it. We wouldn't have been talking about it if it wasn't for this. So what are some of those intangible things that then you can go back and measure a year from now, like how many jerseys have we sold, how many tickets, how many people are in the stands? Those are things that you would start to see as an ROI on your investing. And if you look at it, at least in the business world, right? Maybe it's a 10% a year. So especially the way they've deferred it. I agree with you. There's some sort of, way this is all going to meet in the middle, because they're going to get, in theory, the ROI on $700 million up front for 10 years without really paying out the cash. So as much as this is incredibly confusing, it's also a way to say, okay, let's take cost off the table, right? Not completely, but to say, what do you need, especially on your management team, right? Because if you need that 150 plus, whatever, big person that you're going to bring in to transform your organization, it can't just be cost. That's the reason you say no, because what you're missing in that argument is what that person fundamentally changes in your financials 6 months from now, a year from now. And that's where it's truly an investment rather than a cost. And I think as business owners, sometimes when we're just looking at what's already happened, we miss this transformational thing that can happen by bringing in this big player or mandatory.
Yeah, because there's always risk, right? There's risk that Ohtani gets hurt in the first week of the season and never plays again. No. So, right, every risk, we hope not, even as Phillies fans, we hope not, but there's a risk. So, same thing, right? You could say, hey, we're paying, for example, $100,000 for a GM or area director, whatever you want to call it, but we really think to elevate our business, we need to pay $150.
Yeah.
200, whatever the number is, right? There's risk, right? You might pick the wrong person, right? That risk is out there. We don't know. But, what could that good person do for organization?
Yeah.
Can they shave 5% in labor because they know how to manage the labor systems? Can they save 5, 6, 10% in food costs because they know how to manage all of it, right? From prepping to all the things that we always talk about. When it comes to staff attrition, can they manage it, create culture, right? So if you're paying that person $50,000, $60,000 more than maybe the person you had before, the sticker shock is there also, right?
It's going to hurt. We're not saying it won't.
But when you really dig into what, on $1 million operation, a $2 million operation, to save 10, 15, 20 points to the bottom line, there's $200,000, right? I mean, so the initial look is like, oh my gosh, but I think as you dig into your numbers, it might not be as crazy as you think initially.
Right, and I think if structured correctly, because we've seen this with some of our clients, if structured correctly, that person comes in with those expectations before they ever start. I've seen this a lot with people bringing in like catering managers, really more on the sales side. But it holds true that if you've had that conversation up front, you say, I'm investing in you, but I very much expect X, Y, and Z to happen, then if it doesn't happen 6 months from now, it's not like there's a surprise, right? It's very clear that we are investing for these results. And then I think it's not unfair if we don't get there.
Right. And again, just like the Dodgers, you can get creative. Maybe that package is a large package, but maybe there is some profit sharing, bonuses, like you said, sales targets. So maybe there's a little bit of risk on both ends that person's going to trust in you as the ownership that, hey, I can make a lot of money here, but it's going to be on performance.
Right. And I've actually seen clauses where, this is your first 6 months of salary, but if it doesn't start to work out, it actually starts to go down and get back to what it would have been without this. So I think it's being open to having that conversation, being open to seeing if your top level managing team can generate different results. Like, how different would it be if you had someone back of house oriented, or whatever those skill sets are that you feel like you're missing now? How different really would it be? Is there a 5% change that could happen in food costs? Is there a 5% change that could happen in labor? Then yes, this would make sense as an investment. Yeah,
and we always talk about going back to the corporate world, and I've seen it. I've seen a difference in one restaurant or an area of 5 to 8 restaurants, the financial impact of somebody else being in charge.
Yeah.
So everything else was the same, right? The same corporate, same system, same everything. But one person can make a huge difference on just the financial side. Yeah. So I don't think it's as...
Well, and I think that's what's so hard as an independent, where I think we get so caught up in, I just could never afford that salary. Because you're just looking at what you've always done. And I think as an independent, you don't know, right? You created this concept from nothing. So nobody knows what it could be. But that's where you have to really look at, I think, where you're trying to go. Are you a $2 million operation that could get to 2.5? Are you one that could get to 1.5? What's the average of your quick serve, right? Like, could you get to 1.5 in revenue? What are some of the chains similar size or similar square footage doing? Like, we have to use that data to our advantage, because otherwise we're just comparing against what we don't know.
And it's definitely important to at least forecast, like you said, what you could do. We're not telling you, if you're running a $500,000 restaurant, to bring in a $200,000 GM, right? That's not the goal of this. But is, like you said, what could it be? If you have 4 or 5 restaurants, what could they be? And I think that's where it comes in to say, all right, maybe if I do think about the compensation package differently, I mean, you're not locked into 10 years like the Dodgers, right? Like, most states, you can probably at any point part ways. And, even introductory periods. There's ways.
I agree. Have like a 3-month check-in, a 6-month check-in. That way, there's no surprise if we get to 6 months and we're done, because it didn't happen. But that's why I think too, the other part of this is, I think too many times we have this unrealistic notion of this well, I should be working on my business, not in my business. So if you bring in an Ohtani, right, and you're investing these big numbers, the other question I would ask is, okay, then what are you doing? And not that, what you're doing is important, but there should be an ROI on your time away from the business too, right? It's not like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the beach for 6 months, right? I really then should be working on my next location, working on my catering concept, have defined results. Because the other thing we see as this clash is, okay, you've invested in your version of Ohtani. There's been a lot of cash that went out the door, but if that person doesn't deliver and you didn't see an ROI for your time outside of your time in the restaurant, now it really was an added cost.
Yeah, and I think your plan of what you're going to do with that person, right? Because even Ohtani is not going to bat 1,000, right? He's not going to, every time he goes to the mound, not let up a run. So even that GM or district manager, whoever you brought in, they're not going to be perfect, right? In some area, they're either not going to know your business like you want them to know, or they're just not going to see it like the owner's eyes. No one's going to see it through the owner's eyes. So I do think there's still, on your standpoint as the owner, you have some work that you have to do. It's kind of a two-way contract also. That you, just like the Dodgers owe Ohtani to build around him and continue to put parts to let him be successful. You owe that general manager, district manager, the tools they need and to be a part of the growth plan.
Right. And I think that's where, as we get to the end of the year, as we get to January, this is an incredibly important time to really look at your team for next year, where you're going in 24. We talk about it a lot, but, building out that budget, focused on the management team you have today and what do you need to have a different result or a better result next year. And I think from this standpoint, those are great thoughts because, okay, we have Ohtani, but did it take too many dollars away from I still need an assistant? This person can't be there open to close every day, right? So what is the supporting team that we need? What are the dollars that supporting team needs? And then fundamentally, the other question is, okay, is it going to work bringing in this outside person as our whale of a person, even for the Dodgers, right? Is it going to work because you still need 8 more people, right? That to win as a team, you need 9 people. To win in your organization, you need at least 3, 4, 5 of your management team. So is it going to work culture-wise that you spent all this money on one person? Or is there maybe someone alternatively to say, well, that just wouldn't work in my culture. I can't bring some big whale salary in from the outside. So is there someone I could start to develop internally to turn into an Ohtani, a year from now, but 6 months from now, they're going to see a salary increase and they're going to see this, and just building out that plan. And only you can answer that question. But we have to take the time to look at how could it be done better. Because I think too many times we look back, and I've done this a lot with clients the last few weeks especially, and say, okay, we ended up 23, great in some places, not great in others, but what caused the not great, right? So if you're looking at your labor cost and you're seeing it high, it's not a fixed amount, right? There were some decisions that went into that cost. And I think that's the starting point because we talked about turnover, right? If it costs $5,000 for every new employee that we brought in, if I'm building a budget for next year, I'm not just going to take this year's budget for labor and add to it and say, well, labor costs are going up. No, there could be turnover there. There could have been, I hired this position, just didn't work out. And I tried this position, that didn't work out, right? There's a lot of moving parts in that number. So it's going to take us time to dig into the starting point for our labor.
Yeah, because I think as you get to those positions and you try to go higher and you get to higher levels, there's a reason why somebody is making 80 or 90 and wants 80 or 90 from you, or whatever that number is. And there's a reason why someone else thinks that they're worth 130, 140 plus, and they're getting that from somewhere else. I think that's the combination of, because they probably have experience in this market now of saving and what can they tell you that they've done. How did they lower, attrition, retention at their last job? What did they do to keep staff? What did they do to make managers better? Like, we're not saying just to give out a contract for no reason.
Right.
But as we go back to the Dodgers, Ohtani's shown that now. He's shown that he can be one of the best hitters in baseball, one of the best pitchers. He's proven that over a pretty good amount of time period. A few years now, which in baseball's kind of a long time. To be really good for a few years to earn that.
Yes. And I think you're right. And I think that's where, you guys also talk a lot about your hiring process, right? Because I think for this to be a win for both sides, it has to really all be talked about during that hiring process. Like, how do I know that you really have the experience to deliver these results? is there some level of accountability? What are you going to report to me? Like, that person needs to know all of that up front. It can't just be, oh, I had to get them in. I just gave them what they want. Right. And now you're angry about it. But they don't understand why you're angry, right? They're just getting a paycheck. And they're like, wow, I don't feel like the owner likes me, but I don't know why.
Yeah, no, I always look at hiring as the most important decision you make, whether it's from a dishwasher up to your highest level. I mean, I think that's where it creates a culture. Everything flows from that, right? We can talk to a bill in the face about labor and cost of goods and all that stuff. But if you didn't hire the right people or train the right people, it all becomes irrelevant. The starting point is done.
Yeah.
So that is the most important thing, is to hire the right people. And that right person that you hire the rest of the right people. Yeah. So,
Yeah. And that's where I just think, this is a great thing to think about, because I think the things we can learn here is, not being afraid to spend money on top talent, and being creative in the approach to do it, and really outlining the expectation of, like, okay, if you're going to give someone this money, not in a bad way, but in an exciting way. Let's see what you're going to do for our organization. I think everyone would say World Series is probably been talked
at this point now, that's probably there's really nothing below winning a World Series to make this successful, right? Yeah. You can agree in this boat. That's it.
That's it. And that's okay, right? I think if you're Ohtani, like, you expect that, right? And so now you have that challenge, and you go from here. But, I think as we look at next year, our homework to you would be, it's not fun to look back at labor costs over the last year. I think every organization would tell you it's painful, right? It's probably a big number, bigger than you've ever seen. But what can we learn from that number, right? We've seen rates go up. We've seen turnover be an issue. So rather than just say, I can't make it work, how could we dig in and find at least a starting point, right? This is what my labor costs me today. And how could I look at this as an ROI, a return of my investment going forward? And fundamentally, what are those new roles creatively found to make next year even better?
Yeah, I don't think at any point we're saying that a more expensive person has to be better than a lower price person.
No.
We're just saying, if the person you want, the person you think is going to save the day, well, then you might need to pay for that person.
Yeah.
If your person that you're paying now is not as much and they're awesome, keep going with it. We're not saying make the change.
No.
But we are saying that don't let that be the stop.
The one reason.
The one reason we just can't afford that person. Well, I interviewed this person. He's the exact fit we're looking for. She's the best person we've talked to. We know this person is going to be great in all aspects. But for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, we can't pay
work, right?
Instead of trying to figure out how to make it work.
Well, and that's where, as much as it's not always a fun process, building out that budget is so important. Right. Because if you're in the interview process and the person asks for $20,000 more, if you have that budget, you can say, yes, I can find that other places, right? Like, I'll play with this, we'll, do this here, or I can't. Because if you know that up front, that's where such of that friction happens, right? Then it could be a great working relationship from the beginning because you both agreed this will work.
Right. Yeah, and I've seen from all the way up from high-level management to just, a line cook. When a manager walks up to, man, I really like this line cook. I think he's going to be really good, but he wants $2 more than the right offer. Okay? I understand that $2 an hour can make a difference. I get it. But in the grand scheme of things,
especially for a cook,
right? For a line cook, for a skilled line cook,
what is good food worth to you?
Right, and that was always my challenge back. Where could that person cop 3 less burgers over the course of the month because he's really good? Or could she work 2 positions for 2 hours while we're slow because they're really good?
Yeah,
$2 an hour doesn't seem like that much when you start looking that way.
Yeah,
I think that's the just different mindset of how you're spending your money.
Yes.
We're not trying to just tell you to go spend.
No. But knowing the levers and knowing exactly where you are, now that decision, whether you went with the $2 or not, you feel comfortable with it because you looked at everything you could. And that's where, even when you're looking back, I had a conversation with one of our clients earlier today and they said, their labor's too high. Everybody knows it. We had some sales things that was a little bit of a surprise. So, this year hasn't been as great as we all thought. And we built the budget together. So I know I've been there with them through it all. But, one of the things they brought up is, I should have made that decision much earlier. And I think, that's fine if that's true. But, I told them at that time, it didn't feel like the right decision. Right? All the information we had, it didn't look like we needed to, cut people as early as now that looks like on paper we should have. And that's, a good lesson of like, if we really were sitting there in May, would we have made a different decision? no, right? We didn't think things were going the way they ended up going. And that's okay, right? So it is a good lesson in, and one thing they brought up is, they should have paid a little more attention to what they were hearing from, some of their competitors and other things. And at the time it was like, oh, well, that's not happening to us here, but it's happening other places. So it's true. There's something to be learned there, but it's also the fact of it's never going to be perfect, right? Even if you are, eye on the ball, we're doing these budgets, there's always going to be things that we miss, and that's just part of business. So we can't dwell on that too long. It's a good conversation to have. It's a good way to look at it. But I think every one of us will say, your labor is probably too high if you look backwards. So we want to get the learning lessons that we can, not beat ourselves up about it, but also make sure we have a better dialed in labor for next year.
Yeah, I said, as long as you've had the plan, that's all. As a GM, that's all I could ever ask my team. Okay, you thought in the sales, this is why. Okay, that looks good, right? I mean, we can't predict the future. We can't change the past. So as long as I thought the game plan was good, if it didn't always work out, it didn't work out. But I will say, when you do that more often, in the long run, typically you will win.
I agree. And it's being gentle on yourself and your team on the misses, right? Because the more we're like, the less anyone's going to want to do that exercise. But the more we're, okay, let's learn from this. Let's see where we could have tweaked it differently. What decisions would we have made differently? But let's all look forward, right? There's no good in going back and rehashing a good or a bad year, right? It really is all about what are you going to do differently when the clock stays moving. And it's hard to believe that we're almost there, but we really are. So as things quiet down and, the holiday rush is over, even if it's, first couple weeks of January, building a target and a budget for next year, it will be worthwhile, because you never know. Your Ohtani could come in.
Yeah, and be ready.
Be ready. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us this week. Please check out our website, thelargroup.com. We have a great challenge going on, our Margember challenge. We have free resources. We got a 5-day challenge, which is now available on demand. We talked about turnover. We talked about budgets, all the things you need. So it's all free to you. It's our way to give you everything you need to make 2024 amazing. So check out our website, join our challenge, and we will see you on next week's episode.